penguins. The boat grounded as a wave lifted, then dropped. "Just in time," he said. "Tide's going out fast. On you go." Ellie grabbed her bag, pushed her blonde hair out of her eyes and staggered to her feet. The driver of the boat hadn't said a word to her on the journey except, "Oh, aye," when the harbour master on St. Branok's Island had suggested he give Ellie a lift to Morwen Island. Now he held the craft steady as Ellie looked up and up at the rusted ironwork, brown with dangling seaweed. Ellie's mouth went dry. She struggled to hold the heavy bag with her left hand while grasping a rung with her right, before realising she couldn't climb 15 feet of ladder with one hand. She rearranged the long strap across her body, hoping it wouldn't strangle her, and started the ascent. Moving one limb at a time, the wet metal sharp in her hands, she concentrated on the stone in front of her. "Don't look down! Don't look down!" She crawled on hands and knees over the top, onto wet stones that made up a sort of roadway between the grey sea and a line of houses. She clambered to her feet, brushed her wet jeans down, and turned to watch the older man spring off the top of the ladder. "Well then," the man said, turning to leave. "Wait!" The word came out with some force. I don't know the island at all. Do you know where this is?" Ellie rummaged in her pocket for the creased letter from the solicitor, which came with a key that looked like it belonged to an old shed. "Kittiwake Cottage, Long Lane, Morwen Island," she read out. The man stared at her. "If I were you, I'd get a room at the pub first. You'll need somewhere warm and a hot meal. It's going to be bitter tonight." She looked at the row of old houses facing the sea. They were an odd mix of 2 and 3 stories, narrow and leaning together, and they were painted the faded pastels of sugared almonds. At one end was a large building with a board outside reading Island Queen, and the flaking sign had a painting of a ship. A few shops interspersed the row of houses, but they all looked closed. "I think I need to go straight to the house," Ellie said, shifting the weight of the bag, feeling the bulk of the sweater Leo had packed for her. "I'll be fine for one night." The man stared at her for several seconds, making Ellie feel uncomfortable before he spoke. "Fair enough. Go up any of the roads off the quay. They'll lead to Long Lane. Then turn left. It's one of those detached cottages along the hill. There's a sign by the door." Ellie followed his pointed finger. The colourful houses of the town stretched up in several narrow lanes, ending at fields. A few grey roofs were scattered along the green edges. Behind them was a hillside of hedged squares, a few sheep moving beneath the clouded and darkening sky. The man turned and walked off without a word, but Ellie got the sense he was amused. She started along the quay and up a narrow path called Warren Lane. There was no room for a car, she thought. The little houses almost felt like they were leaning towards each other at the top. She slipped on the cobbled surface before she got her balance. It was much steeper than she had expected, and no one else was out this late on a March afternoon. Cold air was trickling down her neck inside her coat, and she almost stopped to put her jumper on. "It'll be warmer when I get in." She pulled the key from her jeans pocket. The road at the top was just tyre tracks and grass poking up through gravel. She turned left, glimpsing a slate roof in the hedge ahead. She hurried towards it and pushed open a gate in the stone wall. The cottage was beautiful. It had low white walls, a gleaming slate roof, and a few pots of plants gathered around the door. For a moment she felt a glow of relief. Walking closer, she realised she had the wrong cottage. Tideswell. There weren't any lights on, so it was probably a holiday let. The next house was equally pretty, but painted cream with white window frames. Oyster catchers. She adjusted her bag, which was digging into her shoulder, and looked back down at the quay. This was nothing like her street in London. The patchwork of slate roofs led the eye down to the grey sea. Late sun was creeping out in patches, highlighting the island opposite, called St. Petrox, and an area of choppy sea between, which the boatman had called the Sound. Spots of white surged on the water, which was a shade darker than the grey sky. It seemed 1,000 miles from home. Beyond the cream cottage was something that looked like an outhouse, with tattered roofing felt and roof supports rising out of a mound of ivy. It wasn't until she found a gap in the wall and a path between the skeletons of weeds that she could see the sign, Kittiwake Cottage. It had once been painted green, and the faded walls had collected a film of algae and moss over the cracked